He awakens in the body of a side character who is soon about to get killed. He decides to just lay low to avoid conflicts. Yet with every twist of the plot, he garners even more attention. His only hope is the mysterious protagonist setting adjustment, which could actually grant him the plot armor every protagonist has, using which he must alter the game's plot to survive against Zephyr. His parents named him Juing Gong, which means protagonist in Korean, hoping he'd grow up to be someone important. Everyone else just made fun of his name, but he didn't really care. Deep down, he believed he could become the main character. If not in real life, then at least in the remake of his favorite game, Night Saga Re. He knows every tiny detail about it. But when he wakes up, he finds himself in the body of a side character who can talk to ogres. The world feels oddly real this time. An ogre calls him Shutra, and he immediately recognizes the name. It belongs to the Demon King's 9th son. Since he didn't get to select his character, he wonders if he's supposed to play as Shutra for this first run. Even regular NPCs have at least 10 points in every stat, but despite being a prince, his stats are terrible. His name is listed as Shutra Ignis, age 14, species Gonnerv. In the skills window, he spots Conquest LV.1 and Protagonist Setting Adjustment LV.1. He wonders if that Protagonist Setting Adjustment really means what he thinks it does. Before he can make sense of it, the ogre comes back and drags Shutra off to battle, saying they need to wipe out the Scarlet Lightning bastards. It's supposed to be a war, yet when Shutra looks around, he sees only 10 people. He wonders where the tutorial went. With no other options, he opens the map and is relieved to see a minimap. It makes things much easier, so he decides to keep it open at all times. Then he notices a hidden path and wonders if it's part of an event. Ogre Karek seems to be looking in the same direction, trying to figure it out. Shutra tells him that using that route would take too long and insists they follow him instead. He knows a faster way. The orcs decide to follow his lead, and soon they arrive at a massive gate. Karek is astonished that the young prince managed to find such a place. He also notices how exhausted Shutra looks, while Shutra himself can only think that he didn't realize a level 1 body could be this unfit. He asks the others to check whether the gate will open first. Just then, a strange surge of power rises from deep within him, and he pauses, wondering what on earth is happening to him. Then he sees a notification pop up. It says he's leveled up. Shutra can't believe it. He actually leveled up just from walking. Even crazier, all his stats went up by 2, and he got 2 extra points to distribute. That's insane. Before he can process it, the orcs, especially Karek, urge him to hurry. Shutra has no idea what's waiting inside, but at least he's not alone. More importantly, he keeps thinking about that protagonist setting adjustment skill. If it really works the way he hopes, does that mean he has plot armor now? Inside the dark cave, the orcs and Shutra move cautiously. Karek mentions that the dwarves must have been the ones who dug it out. Shutra seems confused, saying he thought there were no dwarves in this world. Karek explains that there used to be, but not anymore. When Shutra asks if they all moved out of the demonic realm, Karek admits he doesn't know and has only heard about them from stories. A few steps later, Karek spots something shiny and excitedly calls out that they've hit the jackpot. Apparently, the dwarves must have left behind a ton of weapons and materials. The orcs start grabbing everything they can, laughing like maniacs despite the heavy load. Shutra watches them quietly and opens his system window. A string of notifications tells him his level isn't high enough to use any of the equipment, and even his magic stat isn't sufficient. The realization makes him a bit disappointed, but he decides to take them anyway. He checks if he has an inventory system, and to his relief, he does. All he needs to do is touch an item and think about storing it. One by one, his inventory starts filling up. Just then, he notices some movement on the minimap. His instincts kick in and he tells everyone to back off. The orcs turn to look behind him, but before they can react, a massive explosion shakes the cave. The blast sends everyone flying as a group of new enemies appears, warriors clad in red. They taunt the group, claiming they knew this route would be used. At the front stands General Kai Qian of the Scarlet Lightning tribe, who immediately orders his men to kill everyone. Chaos erupts. The green-skinned orcs fight fiercely, but the red warriors clearly have the upper hand. Shutra is completely lost, unsure of what to do. He wonders if he should at least try to steal some kills to gain experience. He rushes forward and swings his sword, but it shatters instantly on impact. The enemy turns toward him, even angrier than before. Panicking, Shutra does the only thing that that comes to mind, he runs. But before he can get far, his foot catches on a stone, and he tumbles to the ground. Shutra's HP is down to just 1. His MP bar is still full, but it's not going to save him now. A red ogre charges at him, ready to strike. Panicked, Shutra lets out a scream. Then suddenly, Carrick rushes in front of him, yelling for the prince to move. Watching Carrick fight to protect him leaves Shutra speechless. His hands won't stop shaking. In his mind, he keeps repeating to himself that it's just a game. But it doesn't feel like one. It's too real, too terrifying. He tells himself that's enough for today and tries to open the menu. Maybe he can log out, take a break, anything. But when he checks the status window, it says he doesn't own any skills yet. That can't be right. A chill runs down his spine as he realizes there's no option to end the game either. While the thought sinks in, he looks around and sees the green-skinned ogres being beaten one after another. A horrifying possibility starts forming in his mind. What if he's actually trapped here? Before he can think further, the same red ogre that attacked him before charges again. Stones begin swirling around the creature, gathering into a storm. Shutra freezes in fear, whispering that he can't die here. But the rocks launch straight at him. The impact sends him crashing into the wall. His whole body aches, and his vision starts fading. He can barely keep his eyes open as he sees the red ogre stepping toward him. A final notification flickers faintly in front of his eyes. Then his HP hits 0. Shutra awakens in complete darkness. He has no idea where he is. The last thing he remembers is being struck down by the red ogres. For a moment, he wonders if this means he's completely dead, but he refuses to believe that. Then, suddenly, a bright light appears before him. A calm yet commanding voice echoes through the void, saying, "You are the fated existence of this place. Conquer, enslave, and rule." Out of the light, a goddess emerges, her presence overwhelming yet strangely familiar. Shutra can't make sense of any of it. Before he can ask who she is, the light intensifies and swallows him whole. The scene shifts back to the battlefield, where the clash between the red and green ogres still rages on. The red ogres are dominating, their numbers and strength clearly superior. Their leader scoffs, wondering aloud if the green ones are truly this foolish to attack with so few. He waves his hand dismissively, ordering his troops to finish the job. But before they can strike, a burst of light erupts near him. The leader shields his eyes and glares toward the source. A lone figure is standing there. His expression twists in disbelief. It's that prince, the one who was supposed to be dead. He growls, demanding to know how Shutra is still alive. At that very moment, a new notification appears before Shutra's eyes. Skill acquired, telekinesis LV.1. Shutra stares blankly at the message. Telekinesis? When did I even learn that? One surprise follows another as his subclass suddenly changes to Knight of Conquest. The red ogre leader, now furious, shouts for his warriors to kill him at once. But before they can move, Carrick appears from behind the chaos, his face battered but determined. He yells for everyone to protect the prince. The green ogres rally at once, shouting that the prince must not be harmed, even as their voices are drowned out by the roaring battle. The red ogres charge forward relentlessly. The green ones rush to intercept, forming a wall in front of Shutra. Standing behind them, Shutra stares down at his broken sword and glances back at the status window. Knight of Conquest isn't even a standard class under the knight category. None of this makes sense. Then, suddenly, a surge of energy explodes from deep within him. His mind fills with unfamiliar incantations, spells that sound ancient yet instinctively known. A voice echoes within him, repeating, "The power of conquest shall be the power of the king, under the king's banner." As the words leave his lips, all the energy inside him bursts outward, flowing into the green ogres around him. One by one, they feel an overwhelming strength rise within them, the power of conquest itself. The order comes through loud and clear, "Sweep them all." This time, it's the green ones taking the lead. They charge forward with overwhelming force, tearing through the red ogres like a storm. The red leader can only watch in disbelief. How did they suddenly get so strong? It's absurd. But before he can figure it out, the green warriors are already closing in on him. A chilling thought crosses his mind. Could this all be the work of that prince, Shutra? Enraged, he shouts for his troops to stop the madness and directs his fury toward Shutra. But Shutra stands his ground. He feels strangely confident now, almost fearless. Carrick appears beside him once again, locking blades with the red leader. Shutra channels even more of his power into Carrick, telling him to finish it. Carrick roars and charges in with renewed strength. The red leader's eyes widen in shock. He tries to say something, "Wait a second," but before he can finish, Carrick's strike sends him crashing to the ground. The once proud commander falls, defeated. Seeing their leader down, the red ogres panic. Chaos spreads among them as they start retreating, shouting in terror. The green warriors, still burning with newfound energy, cheer and rush after them. They're running. Don't let a single one escape. In the middle of the victory, a series of notifications flash before Shutra's eyes. General's merits awarded to the king. Level up, level up. His level keeps rising again and again. It's almost too fast. Shutra stares at the glowing text, confused. Why is my level going up like this? Meanwhile, Carrick stands amidst the battlefield, catching his breath. He can feel the strange energy still surging through his body. Whatever it is, it's powerful and somehow tied to the prince. As he looks back at Shutra, he wonders if this mysterious strength really came from him. Later, they set up camp to recover. Inside the dimly lit tent, Shutra sits alone, scrolling through his menus and notifications. He mutters to himself in frustration. No matter how hard he looks, the result is the same. There's no log out button. He forces himself to calm down and think rationally. Two possibilities come to mind. The first, he's trapped inside the game's virtual world due to some kind of system error. Maybe it's a bug, and the developers will fix it in the next update. The second possibility is much harder to accept. Maybe this isn't a game at all. Maybe this is reality. Everything feels too vivid. The scenery, the sounds, the pain. The NPCs converse naturally, showing emotion and awareness. And most telling of all, there's no pixelation, no artificial blur, no sign that this is a simulation. The thought hits him like a punch to the chest. If this really is the world of Night Saga Re, then he isn't playing anymore. He's living it. Panic slowly sets in as he realizes what that means. The thought hits him. What if this really is another world? He starts to panic for a moment, wondering if he really has to die here. Then he shakes his head and tells himself that he can't take that kind of risk. At least he thinks he's not an orc or an ogre. For now, he's a prince, someone born with a golden spoon in his mouth. A voice suddenly calls from outside. Carrick asks if the prince has some time to spare. When Shutra steps out, he notices Carrick holding two swords and wonders why he's suddenly asking for a sparring match. Carrick explains that since Shutra is going to be his leader, it would help to know his level of swordsmanship so they can prepare for the future. Shutra hesitates and asks if that's really necessary, but before he can say more, Carrick tosses him a sword. Carrick tells him not to worry and that he'll hold back as much as he can. Shutra laughs and says that's a strange thing to say to a prince, then adds that if they're gonna fight, they might as well do it seriously. As Carrick takes his stance, Shutra charges forward and immediately loses his balance. It becomes painfully clear that he can't fight at all. His swings are sloppy, uncoordinated, and barely threatening. Watching him, one might think even a stone could do more damage. Carrick sighs, disappointed, and begins his own attack. With a few quick movements, he sends Shutra flying backward. As the prince lies on the ground, Carrick rushes over and asks if he's alright. Shutra complains that Carrick shouldn't have hit so hard without warning. Before Carrick can respond, a faint notification appears before Shutra's eyes, informing him that basic swordsmanship level 1 has been acquired. Shutra blinks, wondering if he really just learned swordsmanship, and when it even happened. Then the realization dawns on him. Just like with telekinesis, he must acquire skills by directly experiencing attacks with his body. Carrick tells him that they should end the spar and go eat, but Shutra suddenly feels a rush of excitement. He straightens up and tells Carrick that it's not over yet. Carrick looks at him, confused, as Shutra grips his sword again and says that he's just getting started. Shutra rushes toward Carrick once again, sword in hand. This time, however, it's Carrick who's caught off guard. He watches in surprise as Shutra's movements flow more smoothly. His stance is steadier, his attacks sharper. For a moment, Carrick wonders how this is even possible. Just minutes ago, Shutra's swordsmanship had been laughable. There's no way someone can improve that fast. Still, Carrick blocks the next strike and swats Shutra away once again. But this time, the prince doesn't fall into panic. Instead, he's smiling, a strange, confident smile that throws Carrick off even more. Shutra asks what Carrick's current level is. Carrick replies that the last time he checked, he was around level 21. Hearing that, Shutra compares it to his own level 7 and thinks that catching up shouldn't take long. He realizes something crucial about this world. Everyone here has levels, but unlike him, they can't immediately see their stats in the status window. They need to use a special evaluation spell to find out. That means his ability to check and reinforce his stats directly gives him a massive advantage. With this, he can grow stronger much faster than anyone else. And right now, Carrick is witnessing that firsthand. As he catches his breath, Shutra's mind drifts to the game's story, the demon arc of Night Saga. It's the tale of Zephyr, who rises above his siblings to become the Demon King. The story spans countless chapters, but the most crucial point is the massacre that takes place in the year 517, when Zephyr kills all of his brothers and sisters to secure his throne. All of them, including Shutra himself. It's only the year 512 now, so he still has time, but not much. He decides that the only way to survive that destined event is to grow stronger than Zephyr himself. Before he can think any further, Carrack calls out to him, asking what he's still doing outside. He tells Shutra that he's been looking for him everywhere. When Shutra asks what's going on, Carrack reminds him about a royal meeting scheduled for today, something Shutra has absolutely no memory of. Panicking, he rushes toward the meeting hall. Inside, he finds a long table surrounded by some truly eccentric faces. Among them is the 7th prince, Chris Moonlight, who greets him casually and tells him to relax. After all, they're siblings. Sitting next to him is the 8th princess, Caitlin Moonlight, who notes that this is their first time meeting. Chris waves it off and tells him to just call them by their names, insisting there's no need for formality. Shutra nods awkwardly, but inside, his thoughts are elsewhere. These two, Chris and Caitlin Moonlight, are the children of Elaine Moonlight, the 4th queen, and ruler of the lycanthropes. He remembers them vividly from the game. They were always a real pain to deal with. Worse yet, he knows their fate. A year before the day of massacre, both of them die, murdered by Zephyr and the other royal children. The reason lies in a secret known only to the court, Caitlin Moonlight's birth. She was never meant to exist. She's a bastard child. And Shutra can already feel that this world story is beginning to move faster than he expected. Caitlin asks why Shutra fought those enemies without following the plan, reminding him that he was only supposed to go on patrol. Shutra explains that he didn't expect them to appear from that direction. Caitlin steps closer, examining him carefully for any injuries. She tells him that, being the weakest among them, he should have been more cautious. Shutra is genuinely surprised by her concern, but he apologizes and wonders silently why she worried about him. Since when are the Demon King's children this close? Chris joins in, warning him that he'll be in serious trouble if he does something reckless again. Shutra thinks to himself in astonishment that these siblings actually seem kind. He notices that among the lycanthropes, there are many aura users, likely due to the strong life force in their bloodlines. He wonders if he can learn aura the same way he gained other skills, by experiencing it firsthand. Gathering his courage, he asks Chris and Caitlin a favor. Whatever it is shocks them both. They exclaim in disbelief, clearly taken aback by his request. Later, in a dark mountainous area, red and green ogres clash fiercely. The battle is brutal, showing no mercy. Even strong red ogres are taking down weaker ones as their leader shouts orders to kill everyone, promising rewards for the highest number of kills. The green ogres, energized by Shutra's power, fight with unrelenting determination. Shutra stands slightly apart, confused and observing the chaos, still recalling the goddess from earlier. He wonders who all these people are. None of them seem familiar from Night Saga. Suddenly, the goddess approaches him, dissolving into pure light. Shutra wakes up, unsure if it was all just a dream. Before he can process it, Carrack appears, asking if he's awake. Shutra admits that he was startled. Carrack comments on how Shutra had kept asking the princess to strike him repeatedly, whining for training, and points out where that method got him, with noticeable progress in his skills. Shutra's aura level has reached 1. He can finally feel it, the energy coursing through him. Carrack wonders if Shutra can awaken his aura by experiencing it directly through attacks. Shutra confirms that he can, at least partially. Carrack then connects the dots, asking if that's also why Shutra seemed so energized while fighting the Lightning Tribe. Shutra admits that it was indeed his doing, and Carrack nods in understanding, finally seeing the method behind the prince's sudden growth. Shutra asks if anything had happened while he was sleeping. Carrack tells him that, of course, the main force had won against the Lightning Tribe as well. Shutra is completely unaware of this main force and wonders aloud, thinking that he, Chris and Caitlin were supposed to be the only ones taking down the Scarlet Lightning Tribe. Carrack explains that it couldn't have been just the 3 of them. The tribe is far too large for such a small group to handle. Shutra then asks who had been in charge of the operation. Carrack reveals it was General Bendal. The name shocks Shutra. General Bendal is one of the strongest fighters he knows, and he remembers admiring him as a subordinate while playing as Zephyr. But then an idea hits him, and a cunning smile forms on his face. He realizes that, in the original timeline, Bendal doesn't become Zephyr's subordinate until the year 515. That means, right now, he could recruit Bendal for himself first. Shutra goes over everything he knows about Bendal, the rewards he favors, the kinds of food he enjoys, his unique talents. Most importantly, he knows that recruiting Bendal requires defeating him in a duel. With this knowledge, Shutra calculates that he should be able to bring Bendal onto his side before Zephyr ever has the chance. He still has plenty of time, and the opportunity feels too valuable to pass up. Determined, Shutra makes up his mind. He thinks to himself with a sly, almost mischievous grin that Bendal will be his first subordinate, already imagining the duel and the moment of victory. At Caitlin's camp, both Chris and Caitlin react with surprise, unable to believe what they're seeing. Chris is particularly shocked when he realizes that Shutra has reached the first level of aura expulsion in just a single day. In his mind, Shutra brushes it off, thinking that it was inevitable. After all, he had put all his points into aura. It wasn't a rash decision either. Aura improves one's physical capabilities overall and, in many ways, is even more useful than telekinesis. Chris, however, can't help but find it almost impossible. He wonders if Shutra's rapid progress is due to being a Gandharv. He then asks if Shutra can also make an underground map. Though Shutra doesn't really have that ability, he still has his minimap. He simply asks for a pen and paper and, after a few moments, produces a well-laid-out map. Chris is once again astonished, thinking it's even more detailed than the map he himself has. Shutra laughs quietly at the praise. Caitlin points out that the Scarlet Lightning tribe members they had encountered earlier are all dead, meaning no one knows that they're aware of the underground tunnels. Chris notes that this gives them an opportunity to set up an ambush using the tunnels. He then mentions that there's another task he needs Shutra to handle. Later, in a mountainous region, Shutra patrols with Karek and a group of green ogres. Karek explains that the mission is to survey the area once more. Shutra, being the youngest among his siblings at the moment, remarks that he has no choice but to participate. Still, he appreciates Karek mentioning that they now have reinforcements on their side. As they move deeper into the mountains, Shutra notices two more figures following them. One is his sister, wearing a robe that catches his attention. She whispers that she is trailing him in secret, prepared to intervene only if things become extremely dangerous, insisting that the accomplishment must be his own. Shutra can't help but wonder if she's foolish for supporting him in this way. The second figure introduces herself as Sierra, the adjutant. The group eventually enters a dark cave filled with scattered items. Shutra wonders why the caverns appear so empty. Another member comments that valuables are usually taken when moving, assuming the dwarves must have cleared this place out. Shutra asks about the weapons they had acquired last time. Karek speculates that perhaps those weren't considered valuable enough to be taken. As they moved deeper into the cave, Karek suddenly warns the prince that something is approaching. Shutra notices it too and quickly glances at his minimap, confirming that it must be what they feared. He checks his inventory and finds the flash spell item he had taken just in case a situation like this occurred. He instructs everyone to close their eyes when he gives the signal. In the darkened cavern, numerous red eyes start to flash, revealing a horde of spiders swarming toward them. These are stone spiders, cave-dwelling monsters that always appear in large groups. Each one carries a potent paralysis poison, making them deadly in close quarters. Shutra shouts for everyone to close their eyes and hurls the flash spell bottle from his inventory. Light erupts throughout the cavern, blinding the spiders and rendering them nearly useless. He thinks to himself that stone spiders are vulnerable to light because they rely on darkness to hunt. Seizing the moment, he commands the ogres to attack. They charge forward, cutting down the spiders rapidly. Shutra studies the map again, noting that the spiders move in coordinated groups and that each group must have a leader. He signals Karek to follow him, intending to take down the boss spider while the ogres handle the smaller threats. They soon come face to face with a massive, grotesque spider. Karek attacks first, swinging his axe, but the weapon bounces harmlessly off the creature's hardened exoskeleton. Shutra recalls that the monster's weakness is fire, but he can't use fire magic yet. The spider notices their presence, letting out a deafening roar and charging toward Karek. Shutra urges him to use fire, but Karek hesitates, unsure where to get it. At that moment, a mysterious voice instructs Shutra to raise his sword. As he obeys, flames erupt along the blade, surprising him with the sudden appearance of magic. Caitlin, observing from the side, checks if the attack is sufficient. The spider lunges, but Shutra locks eyes with it and channels the fire along his sword. With a precise swing, he strikes the boss spider using the newly ignited weapon, the burning blade, unleashing a powerful fiery attack against its weak point. Fire erupts everywhere, lighting up the cavern. A notification pops up to tell Sutra he's leveled up. He's now level 9. Caitlin rushes over and asks if he's alright and what that sudden light had been. Sutra tells her it felt like a blessing and that it happens sometimes, trying to sound casual. He actually wants to ask if she's fought these creatures before, since her movements looked skilled, but she simply asks him if he really only read about them in books. Sutra says yes, though inwardly he thinks that he's fought them dozens of times in the game, so of course he knows how they behave. Karak calls attention to something nearby and points out what looks like a door. Sutra moves closer and recognizes a portal pattern, dwarven style. He says he thinks it's a portal and suggests they search for inscriptions. Karak finds markings, and everyone tries to read them, but the script isn't demon common. It looks dwarven, and none of them understand it, except Sutra. He reads aloud the inscription, saying it names the Kiska Mountains portal number 2 and shows a connection to portal number 3. Sutra is surprised himself and then gets a notification. Dwarven language LV.1 acquired. The message explains that infusing mana will activate the portal. He asks if someone can inject a little mana. Caitlin questions why she should do it instead of him. Sutra admits he's still clumsy with mana and, in his head, knows he can't really use it yet. Caitlin steps forward and channels a small amount of mana into the portal. The runes glow, the portal flickers to life, and a map dot lights up showing their current position, with another marking portal number 3, meaning there are likely dwarven tunnels on the far side as well. Karak points out how useful that is, since the main force of the Scarlet Lightning tribe is stationed in front of those mountains. Sutra replies that this gives them the perfect chance to strike from behind. For the moment, they decide to pause, knowing they first need to discuss the new information carefully with Shutra's brother. Chris is overjoyed, telling Shutra that he's a true blessing and that if there's anything he wants, he only needs to ask. Sutra thinks about asking for something a bit unreasonable, curious to see how far he can push it. He requests to learn the Beast God Fist Art, a legendary martial art passed down through the lycanthrope royal family, an S-rank technique. Chris is taken aback at first, asking if he really means it. Sutra explains in his mind that it's because he still struggles with wielding weapons properly at his level, but martial arts techniques operate differently. He knows it's a bold and somewhat ridiculous request, and he even prefaces it by acknowledging that it might be too difficult. Chris considers it, but ultimately agrees to teach him. He clarifies that while he can't teach the secret techniques, he can at least instruct Sutra in using aura, which is still invaluable. Sutra, thrilled, assures him that it's perfect, absolutely perfect. Chris then says something meaningful, that from now on, he can think of Sutra as his brother. Sutra finds this surprisingly significant and, after a moment's thought, accepts it. He shakes Chris's hand, feeling genuinely pleased. Caitlin watches, smiling at the display of camaraderie. A notification appears: alliance established with Chris Moonlight and Caitlin Moonlight. Alliance status: normal alliance for now. Later, at the Scarlet Lightning tribe encampment, red ogres are stationed throughout the area. One of them remarks on the unexpected presence of their princess at this location, hinting that she wouldn't have targeted this place without reason. The group has captured the 6th princess, Felicia Doomblade, raising the stakes for what's about to unfold. Shutra notices that his charisma has reached 17. He thinks back on how, at first, every time he leveled up, all his stats increased by 2. But now, his charisma only seems to rise by 1 point each level. He wonders why, recalling that in the original Night Saga, appearance and charisma were separate stats. Appearance measured a character's beauty or attractiveness, while charisma reflected how likable they were to others. Sutra decides it makes sense given his growth pace so far. More importantly, he's about to hit level 10. In Night Saga, whenever Jafar and Locke reached level 10, their unique skills, Descendant of Darkness and the Chosen One, each leveled up by 1. If he reaches level 10, at least one of his skills should increase. He hopes for that much. Everything is finally ready, and it's time to depart. Karak notes that Sutra seems unusually cheerful today. Outside, a large group of ogres stands ready for the next adventure, and Sutra himself is prepared. In a mountainous area inside a cave, the ogres encounter monsters. Chris and Caitlin are present as well, questioning one of the wolves about the portal's status. The wolf confirms that the portal is connected to the Eska River of the Gishka Mountains and is functioning perfectly, sturdy as expected of dwarven craftsmanship. Sutra can hardly believe he is seeing such a gate in real life. Without wasting time, the group moves through the portal. Once inside, from a high vantage point, they observe the enemy encampment below, a sprawling collection of tents. Chris notes that, judging by the camp size, there are roughly 5,000 troops. The plan is to strike from the rear, targeting supplies first. If General Bendal launches a frontal attack to distract the enemy, their infiltrating units can burn the food stores from behind. However, the assistants sense something is off. There aren't nearly enough troops in the camp, and they wonder where the rest might be. Perhaps the enemy has already started an attack elsewhere. Suddenly, they hear the sounds of battle. Chris instructs Sutra to focus his aura through his eyes. Initially confused, Sutra concentrates and finds he can see the ongoing fight in astonishing detail, observing the clash as if he were right in the midst of it. As they survey the battle, Caitlin wonders aloud who the other combatants are besides the Lightning Tribe. Chris points out that they aren't General Bendel's men, and that no battle was scheduled for today, noting that the scale of the fight seems unusually small. Sutra continues observing carefully and notices a surprising detail. There are dark elves among the fighters. Caitlin is incredulous, but Sutra confirms it, noting their smaller build and the fact that they're riding Dracos. Chris sees the Dark Elves beginning to retreat at remarkable speed, likely because their commander has fallen, but Sutra remains puzzled as to why they are even here. As the sun sets, Chris, Caitlin, and Sutra meet with General Bendel. One of Bendel's men remarks on how Prince Chris's army discovered the Dwarven portal, but he wants to know how they anticipated it would be there. Chris clarifies that it wasn't him who found the portal, it was Sutra, though Sutra modestly claims it was just luck. In his mind, he reflects that seeing General Bendel again feels oddly pleasant. Bendel promises that Sutra will finally be properly rewarded at the Demon King's castle. Chris then brings up a recent minor skirmish in front of the Lightning Tribe's camp, asking if Bendel knows anything about it. Bendel explains that the Dark Elves likely initiated the battle independently. Chris is confused. Weren't the Dark Elves supposed to be reinforcements from the Demon King's castle? Bendel admits it's hard to say. The Dark Elves intended to scout first, but the situation apparently went awry. The bigger problem, he adds, is that the leader of the Dark Elves' independent unit was captured by the Scarlet Lightning Tribe. Sutra immediately realizes that the reckless skirmish he observed earlier must have been related to this incident. Curious, he asks who commands this independent unit. Bendel reveals that it's someone familiar to them, the Sixth Princess, Felicia Doomblade, Sutra's sister. Both Chris and Caitlin are shocked to hear her name. Sutra feels a mix of surprise and urgency, knowing the stakes have suddenly risen dramatically. Sutra reflects on the Sixth Princess, Felicia Doomblade. She is the daughter of Sylvia Doomblade, the third queen and princess of the Dark Elves, and the twin sister of the fifth prince, Sylvan Doomblade. In the game, both Felicia and Sylvan were part of the faction of the fourth princess, Anastasia Nectrian, which is why Sutra had always regarded Felicia as an enemy. Now, seeing her here, he wonders why she has appeared. Could she be interfering to claim merit for herself? Chris questions whether the Scarlet Lightning Tribe even realizes that the Dark Elf they captured is Felicia, and Bendel admits they haven't been able to confirm it yet. Sutra realizes that if they act first, they could at least attempt a rescue or negotiation, though Bendel has no intention of yielding. Bendel assures Chris that he will continue gathering intelligence and will contact them if anything changes. Chris comments on how their brilliant older sister has ended up a prisoner, and Caitlin immediately insists that if Felicia is alive, they have to save her. Chris warns that a rescue won't be easy, and that attempting it could lead to losses among their own troops. Caitlin reacts strongly, refusing to accept that and declaring they must save her. Chris remains silent for a moment before quietly acknowledging he understands her determination, while Sutra silently observes the exchange. Outside the camp, wolfmen stand vigilant, and inside, the discussion shifts to strategy. Chris outlines the plan. General Bendel will lure the Scarlet Lightning Tribe's main force, allowing them to strike the encampment from behind. He will personally charge into the enemy center to cause chaos, while Caitlin and Sutra lead separate squads to carry out the mission. Sutra clarifies that their objective is rescuing Felicia, and Chris confirms, adding that they must first destroy the enemy's food storage and armory. If the mission becomes too dangerous, they are to retreat immediately. Lives cannot be sacrificed unnecessarily, even for Felicia. Caitlin struggles with this logic, frustrated that Chris seems to put the operation above family ties. Chris reminds her that he is commanding Unit 2 and that Felicia's reckless actions cannot be allowed to endanger the whole operation. Sutra, watching them both, feels a strange mix of confusion and disbelief. Chris doesn't seem fully intent on rescuing Felicia, yet neither does he ignore her plight entirely. Sutra realizes he'll have to think carefully about how to approach this mission himself. Sutra wondered if something had happened happened between Chris and Caitlin, but there was no time to dwell on it. In a dark, burning mountain region, a sudden scream rang out, signaling the start of the attack. Wolfmen and ogres surged forward, rallying their forces to annihilate the Scarlet Lightning tribe. From above, Chris observed the enemy encampment as explosions erupted, catching the enemy completely off guard. Bandal, his face twisted with fury, ordered his troops to kill everyone, and Sutra immediately noticed that the attack had begun. Despite the chaos, he remained patient, waiting for the right signal to act. The battle intensified, with shouts and clashes echoing across the mountains. Finally, Bandal called for a retreat, and Chris commanded his forces to move, initiating the infiltration as planned. The enemy, caught by surprise, struggled to respond. Caitlin cautioned Sutra to stay careful, and he returned the warning, then opened his minimap. Analyzing it, he identified a route to the left that led straight to the enemy's food storage. Carrick fought ahead of him, holding the front line, but suddenly one of the Scarlet Lightning warriors threatened to strike him. Sutra reacted instantly, using his newly acquired dagger-throwing skill to strike the enemy and save Carrick. Surprised, Carrick asked when he had learned to throw daggers. Sutra brushed it off, saying it was nothing special, though in his mind he recalled experimenting with tossing a dagger the previous night, which had somehow unlocked the skill. As they moved closer, Carrick pointed out what appeared to be the food storage. Sutra confirmed they would continue with the plan, but a troubling thought struck him. What if Felicia was inside? If the storage went up in flames, she could be caught in them. Her life was at stake. Sutra immediately shifted his priority, finding Felicia first. Studying the minimap, he reasoned that Felicia, as a neutral NPC in the system, should appear in either blue or purple. Soon, he spotted an icon that matched this criteria and instructed Carrick to follow him. They moved cautiously toward a tent that seemed to match the mark on the map. Sutra scouted carefully, scanning the interior, and finally, a familiar voice startled him. There she was, Felicia, the sixth princess. Felicia Doomblade looked at him in surprise, her tone incredulous as she asked what he was doing here. Sutra finally laid eyes on his sister, and the gravity of the moment hit him. The mission had just become infinitely more personal. Felicia's eyes widened in surprise as Sutra worked quickly to free her. He told her to stay still for now. The area was too dangerous. In his mind, he noted that if he could make Felicia indebted to him here, it might prove useful later. They hurried to regroup with Chris and Caitlin. Felicia blinked in disbelief, asking if Chris and Caitlin had come to rescue her. Sutra brushed off her question, reminding her that it made sense for them to be here. She hesitated, realizing how out of touch Sutra had been with the ongoing power struggles. Suddenly, Carrick shouted that enemies were swarming in. Sutra urged Felicia to follow him immediately, ignoring her protests about the sudden familiarity of being called by name. She ran after him, alerting him to dangers along the way. A sudden strike of light hit Sutra, followed by flames engulfing him, and Felicia's worry spiked. A monstrous creature appeared, prompting her to tense, but before it could strike, a burst of fire hit the monster. From the smoke, Sutra emerged, wielding his newly acquired mana control and fire arrow skill at level 1. He fired more arrows at the advancing monsters, laughing as he enjoyed the chaos of battle. The creatures could not withstand his assault, and Sutra's excitement only grew. Even at level 1, the power of actual magic thrilled him. But danger was not over. Ice arrows rained down from another set of enemies, aiming dangerously close to Felicia. Sutra shielded her and warned her to stay back, taking control of the situation. As the ice arrows struck the ground, a cloud of smoke enveloped him, and in that moment, he realized he had acquired ice arrow skill as well, exactly as he had hoped. Despite his triumph, Sutra knew there was a problem. His HP had dropped dangerously low. He gritted his teeth, knowing he had to survive long enough to protect Felicia and continue the battle. Suddenly, a voice snapped at him, calling him an idiot. It was Felicia. She chastised him, asking why he was even trying to save her. Her words were sharp. Even among their siblings, she said, he was the weakest. So who did he think needed saving? Sutra's mind raced. Clearly, Felicia was misunderstanding his intentions. He realized that she had already taken down one of the enemy maids moments earlier, and as she picked up an ice arrow, he understood. She must have thought he was trying to protect her out of some misguided notion. Before he could react further, Felicia healed him. His wounds vanished almost instantly, a testament to the genius mage he had in front of him. Sutra felt the heal level 1 magic flow through him, replenishing his blood and stabilizing him. He was grateful, mentally noting how impressive her abilities were. Just as he was catching his breath, a deafening roar echoed through the cave. A massive mutated ogre, a blood ogre, appeared, clearly posing a huge threat. Sutra explained the situation quickly to Felicia, noting that they would have to get past this monstrosity to escape. The two of them started running side by side as the blood ogre charged toward them. The blood ogre lunged at them, but Sutra and Felicia managed to dodge just in time. Sutra couldn't believe how fast such a massive creature could move. Felicia shouted that she would use magic to blow it away if he could buy her some time. Sutra hesitated, unsure how he could possibly do that, and another strike from the monster came dangerously close, forcing them to sprint again. Determined, Sutra decided he would draw the monster's attention himself, telling Felicia to prepare her magic. Felicia looked puzzled at his use of the term aggro, but Sutra waved it off, calling it nothing important. Ahead, Carrack was already in position. Sutra instructed him to follow the plan they had used last time. Carrack nodded, immediately understanding. Sutra reached into his inventory and pulled out the dwarven dagger. As he gripped it, the dagger began glowing with energy, radiating the power of the king's banner. Carrack felt the surge of strength coursing through him, and with renewed power, he charged at the monster. Blow after blow landed with devastating force. The massive creature, despite its size and strength, couldn't defend itself against Carrack's relentless assault. Felicia joined in as well, using her magic to make the ground slick with grease. The monster slipped and toppled, leaving itself open. Carrack seized the opportunity, leaping onto the creature and delivering a final, crushing strike, an unmistakable Hulk-like smash. The monster let out a final roar before collapsing, motionless on the ground. Sutra couldn't help but laugh in relief. In his mind, he noted that while other enemies remained, the most dangerous one had been eliminated. Then he noticed a glow around himself. A notification confirmed it. He had reached level 10. The protagonist's setting adjustment had also increased, filling him with an incredible sense of accomplishment. Another notification popped up. A new passive skill had been unlocked thanks to the effect of protagonist setting adjustment level 2. Sutra opened the gift box to reveal battlefield protection level 1. He quickly understood what it meant. Projectiles aimed at him would now be slightly less accurate, almost like the stormtrooper effect he had seen before in stories, where every bullet miraculously misses the hero. With this, he could essentially recreate the plot armor effect he had experienced earlier. Before he could savor this, more ogres began rushing toward him, and Sutra readied himself. The battle wasn't over yet. Even Felicia had to keep moving, warning Sutra about the swarming enemies. She then unleashed a swirling vortex of wind, her magic, O Wind Whirl and Rage, blasting the monsters away with tremendous force. Sutra couldn't help but notice the incredible power behind it. In his mind, he analyzed the attack, realizing it wasn't just ordinary magic. It was a spirit, an actual spirit being summoned. Corrupted or not, Felicia was still a dark elf, and dark elves were naturally gifted in summoning. She wasn't just a brilliant mage, she was a born spirit summoner. Watching her, Sutra couldn't shake a sudden concern. He wondered whether he himself could be struck by such a force if it were directed at him, gaining that power as well. Suddenly, a bright yellow flare lit up the sky. Sutra immediately recognized it as the signal to retreat, but Carrack looked confused, wondering why they were pulling back. Sutra tried to make sense of it himself. Something must have gone wrong. Maybe someone was in danger. He quickly ordered everyone to take the troops and fall back, saying he needed to check on Caitlin. Carrack insisted on going with him, asking what he meant by that, but Sutra told him firmly that there had to be a reason for the retreat order and that, for now, he should just follow his command. Even Felicia refused to stay behind. She said she couldn't stand owing anyone and wanted at least the chance to repay her debt. Besides, she mentioned she still had unfinished business with those red ogre pigs. Carrack nodded and told Sutra to be careful, promising to wait for them above. The others echoed his words as they withdrew, leaving Sutra and Felicia behind. As they moved out, Felicia questioned whether it was really necessary to go after Caitlin. Sutra replied that the sudden retreat order was suspicious, and they couldn't take any chances. Felicia teased him, wondering if Caitlin might have gotten caught by enemies like these, but Sutra hoped that wasn't the case. He said they'd all go back together once this was over. Felicia smirked, saying he seemed awfully worried about Caitlin, and Sutra simply replied that she was his sister, though in his mind, he admitted it was also because of their alliance. Elsewhere on the battlefield, red ogres charged forward in waves, surrounding Caitlin, yet she cut them down one after another with calm precision. After clearing a few more, she stepped back and unleashed a burst of magic, scattering the ones still standing. But more kept coming, coming, and Caitlin switched to her weapon, ready for the next round. By the time Sutra and Felicia arrived, Caitlin was in the middle of her fight, exactly as Felicia had predicted. Sutra had to admit there had been nothing to worry about after all. Caitlin, however, looked surprised to see them and asked why they hadn't retreated. Sutra sheepishly explained that he came to help her, though clearly she didn't need it. When Caitlin noticed Felicia beside him, her eyes widened before she rushed in and hugged her tightly, relieved that her sister was safe. Felicia chuckled, brushing it off, saying Caitlin worried too much. Watching the two of them, Sutra couldn't help but think they seemed very close. He then opened the map, noticing that the enemies were circling back in their direction. They didn't have much time left. Caitlin and Felicia both told Sutra to take the lead while they covered the rear, ready to fight off whatever came next. Outside the portal, the green ones were already waiting when Sutra, Felicia, and Caitlin finally stepped through. Felicia curiously asked if it was really true that Sutra had discovered the portal himself, and Caitlin confirmed it, saying he had played a huge role in the whole operation. Neither of them could quite figure out when Sutra had changed so much. He seemed sharper, more confident than before. A little further ahead, Chris stood waiting, watching as everyone returned safely. Caitlin proudly told him that she had brought Felicia back unharmed. Felicia greeted him politely, saying it had been a while, but Chris only gave a brief nod before replying that it had indeed been some time. Later, during the meeting, Chris mentioned that General Bendel's side had also secured victory. Apparently, Yakuzan, the chief of the Scarlet Lightning tribe, had abandoned the fight after seeing their camp burn. He hadn't exactly surrendered. It looked more like he had fled to regroup. Chris speculated that if Yakuzan managed to gather his scattered allies again, he could still pose a serious threat. That was why, Chris said, they would strike Kairam's forces first thing tomorrow before Yakuzan had the chance to join up with them. Then, shifting the topic, Chris turned to Felicia and asked what had brought her all the way here. Felicia explained that she had been researching ruins nearby and was captured on her way to help after hearing about the battle. Chris eyed her carefully and asked if that was really the truth. Felicia looked offended, wondering if he thought she was lying. They locked eyes for a tense moment before Chris finally turned away and told her she'd had a rough time. He ended the discussion there, dismissing everyone for the night. Outside, the camp was alive with noise, green ogres and wolfmen celebrating their victory with food and laughter, while a few had already dozed off beside the fires. Meanwhile, Sutra sat quietly, scrolling through his inventory. Just seeing his list of acquired skills was enough to lift his spirits, even though the only one truly useful in real combat right now was Aura. He was still smiling at the thought when Felicia appeared, now dressed in fresh clothes. Her sudden visit at such a late hour left Sutra puzzled. Before he could even ask why she was there, Felicia stepped in close, far too close, and told him to take off his clothes. The words hit him like a lightning bolt, leaving him completely frozen in shock. Seeing how nervous Sutra looks, Felicia tilts her head and asks why he's acting so tense. Does he really not plan on letting her treat him? She then explains that what she did earlier was just basic first aid. Since he might have suffered internal injuries, she was trying to cast proper healing magic on him again. That's when it finally clicks for Sutra, so that's what she meant earlier. But before he can say anything, Felicia goes on, mentioning that his body had started glowing during her spell and asking if there's some sort of problem. Sutra brushes it off, saying it's nothing, that it just happens sometimes. Then, changing the topic, he tells her he has a request, something only she can do. Later, a notification appears. Cure level 1, recovers status ailments. Cure poison level 1, recovers from poisoning. Cure disease level 1 recovers from disease. Seeing these new skills fills Sutra with satisfaction. Thanks to Felicia's help, he's now learned 3 healing spells. And on top of that, today is a big day. Caitlin gathers him and tells him that the Beast Fist art has many different branches. Sutra can hardly hide his excitement. It's finally the day he'll begin training in it. Caitlin explains that today, he'll be learning the werewolf branch of the art, a martial discipline symbolic of the lycanthropes. The werewolf Beast Fist art, she says, serves as the foundation of the even greater beast god fist art. That must be why Caitlin chose to teach him this particular form. She tells him that beast fist art makes use of both external and internal aura, and that for now, he'll focus on the basics of internal aura control. Caitlin instructs him to close his eyes and focus on his aura. Sutra follows her words and soon begins to feel it, the faint pulse of power flowing through him. Aura, the power of life itself. It's said to be deeply connected to the soul, and when mastered to its utmost utmost limit, it becomes indistinguishable from the soul's own power. Just then, a notification pops up. You have acquired passive skill, Protagonist Physique Level 1. The skill greatly increases efficiency in training physically mastered abilities. As it levels up, new special traits become unlocked. Sutra can't help but think this skill is ridiculously overpowered. Combined with others like Extreme Demon's Body, which boosts magic training efficiency, and Hero's Blood, which enhances divine power training, his set of abilities doesn't fall short of what powerful figures like Jaffer or Locke possess. And the best part? Each level promises new traits, new potential, making Sutra realize just how far his growth can go. That means the system adds entirely new functions as the level rises. The thought excites Sutra. So this is what it truly means to be the protagonist. The realization sends a thrill through him. Caitlin notices his distracted expression and asks what on earth he's been doing all this time, telling him to concentrate. Snapping out of his thoughts, Sutra quickly apologizes. Caitlin then says it's time to properly begin learning Beast Fist art, and Sutra nods, saying he'll be in her care. A little later, a notification appears announcing that he has finally acquired Beast Fist Art Level 1. Caitlin observes his movements and tells him that being able to perform the basic forms of Beast Fist Art so quickly and accurately is quite impressive. Sutra admits that even while barehanded, it feels as if he's wielding deadly weapons. So this is what Beast Fist Art truly is. Caitlin smiles and suggests moving on to the next technique. But before they can continue, a wolf warrior rushes in, calling out urgently to the princess and saying that something terrible has happened. Kairam's entire unit has vanished. Soon after, Chris joins a meeting to discuss the situation. He says it seems Kairam has caught wind of their plan. Caitlin immediately asks what they're going to do next. According to General Bendel's intelligence, Yakuzan and Kairam are expected to rendezvous nearby, and given the terrain, the probability is high. Chris decides they'll have to take a gamble. From this moment on, they'll join forces with General Bendel and launch a full-scale battle against the Scarlet Lightning Tribe alongside the main army. Later, at the Scarlet Lightning Tribe Subjugation Army's main base, Bendel greets them warmly, commending Chris for coming all this way. It's been a while since they've last met. He also greets Caitlin, asking how they've been doing. Felicia rolls her eyes and tells him not to bother with such cheesy questions, then asks how his subordinates are. Bendel reassures her that they're all doing fine. Even Sutra feels happy seeing Bendel again. In his mind, he thinks that this is the man he admired most back in Night Saga. Maybe that's why, even with that stern face, Bendel still feels oddly familiar. Sutra steps forward and greets him, introducing himself as Sutra. Bendel looks him over, raises a finger, and acknowledges him, addressing him formally as the 9th Prince Sutra. At that moment, a bright light envelopes the area, and the surroundings shift. Fire spreads everywhere, and once again, the goddess appears before Sutra. Two figures stand before Sutra, conquest and war. Their presence burns itself into his mind like an omen. The next instant, he jolts awake, heart pounding, realizing it was a dream. Still, the images linger. He's certain he's seen that mysterious woman before in another dream, but this time, there was also a red woman. Who or what was she? Before he can dwell on it longer, Karek calls out, telling him that departure is imminent. Sutra quickly gets ready and heads out. For this battle, he has been assigned to the left flank, while Bendel commands the center, and Chris and Caitlin lead the right. The Dark Elves, being agile and adaptable, operate separately as an independent unit tasked with striking from the rear. The march begins. Hours blur together until, before he even realizes it, Sutra finds himself standing in the middle of a vast battlefield. The air is thick with dust, tension, and the scent of metal. Around him, thousands of soldiers move like a living tide, shouting, clashing, advancing. And there he stands, small, almost invisible in the chaos. Too little, too powerless. At least that's how it seems. But his protagonist plot armor skill also finally has the opportunity to shine. Sutra feels the weight of the battlefield pressing down on him as the sound of war drums echoes across the plains. His pulse quickens. No matter how hard he tries, he can't shake the nervousness building in his chest. Bendel raises his voice, sharp and commanding, ordering everyone to prepare for battle formation and advance. The troops roar in unison and rush forward like a raging tide. Steel clashes, banners whip in the wind, and the earth shakes beneath their feet. Across the field, the enemy remains still. Their leader simply smirks, as if he's been waiting for this very moment. Then, Without warning, a massive explosion tears through Bendel's front lines. The sound is deafening. Dirt, fire, and soldiers are thrown into the air as chaos erupts. Bendel shouts in confusion, demanding to know what's going on, but even he seems lost. Then, emerging from the smoke, a colossal figure takes shape, a swamp mammoth. Its body looms like a fortress, its skin pulsing with swampy green light. Each swing of its trunk sends another blast tearing through the battlefield. The explosion waves crush everything in their path. Bendel stares in disbelief, clearly unable to comprehend how to fight something like this. The army breaks into panic. Sutra and Karek barely manage to stay upright amid the chaos. Sutra mutters that they've been tricked, realizing the enemy must have planned this ambush from the start. The swamp mammoth roars again, shaking the ground, and then more monsters appear, lizard-like creatures crawling out from the swamp water, snarling and ready to kill. Chris fights furiously nearby, shouting in frustration that the enemy had known all along. Caitlin, trying to stay composed, tells him that they need to retreat before the situation becomes hopeless. Chris hesitates, asking if retreating now is really the best choice. Caitlin insists that if they don't pull back immediately, the entire army could be wiped out. Before they can argue further, a commanding voice cuts through the noise, ordering all forces to fall back. The mages are told to form a defensive line at the rear and hold off the enemy while the rest prepare to retreat. In the chaos, a group of lizard men rush towards Sutra. Karek intercepts one mid-leap, slamming it to the ground, and tells Sutra to stay focused or they'll all die there. Sutra nods, trying to steady his breathing, realizing that this isn't like the games or simulations he used to imagine. This is real war, and people are dying around him. Across the field, Chris continues fighting, urging his men to survive no matter what and make it back alive. By the time the sun begins to set, the battlefield has gone eerily quiet. Smoke still rises from the scorched ground, and the air reeks of blood and ash. At a distant camp, the surviving soldiers are being treated. Some are lying on stretchers, others sitting in silence, staring blankly at the ground. The cost of the ambush weighs heavily over everyone. Chris lowers his head, admitting that this disaster was his fault. He should have anticipated the trap, should have questioned the silence of the enemy lines. Bendel, though grim, tells him that blaming himself won't change anything now. The choices are simple, he says. Either they withdraw entirely or request reinforcements from the Demon King's castle. Chris agrees, saying that letting his soldiers die for his pride would be meaningless. He begins to issue orders for an organized fallback, but before he can continue, Felicia suddenly speaks up. Her tone is calm yet urgent, and it immediately catches everyone's attention. She tells them she has an idea, a possible alternative to retreat. The reason she came to this region, she explains, wasn't because of the war at all. She was originally here to explore an ancient ruin located at the far end of the Gishka Mountains. Sutra listens closely, thinking about how this matches her known traits. Even in Night Saga, Felicia was never a frontline combatant. She was a scholar, a ruin explorer, a mage obsessed with the ancient world's mysteries. Felicia continues, saying she's been researching this particular ruin for years, a place said to be over 15 centuries old. Enkidu, the Earth Dragon's lair. She explains that Enkidu, a dragon born from molten magma itself, once ruled over this mountain range. To protect his lair and his enormous treasure hoard, he created guardians. Not beasts or spirits, but dwarves. These dwarves were blessed with divine craftsmanship and armed with enchanted weapons forged directly from Enkidu's own flames. Among the many relics Enkidu left behind, one stands above all others: the anvil that gives birth to thunder. Felicia says this artifact isn't just a weapon or a symbol of dwarven power. It's said to allow its wielder to command the ancient chimeras forged as treasure guardians and even cast magic on the scale of an army. Destruction powerful enough to change the tide of war itself. She steps forward, eyes shining with determination, and tells them that if they truly wish to win, not just survive, their only real option is to find that relic. Felicia explains that the anvil is exactly what she came here to find. Bendel asks if she knows its exact location, and she admits she does not, only what she's learned through years of research. Chris objects that this isn't very helpful. He tells them they can't risk chasing relics when the enemy could strike again at any moment. Felicia bristles at his dismissal. Sutra steps forward and insists the anvil that gives birth to thunder is definitely in these mountains. Felicia looks surprised. Sutra thinks to himself that he once saw the anvil when he played as the hero Locke. Out loud, he says he found a related passage while studying Dwarven script and that, more importantly, Apparently, he trusts Felicia. She registers his support with a startled look, while Sutra privately thinks it wouldn't hurt to score a few points with the others. Chris warns that this isn't a matter of blind trust. Time is short, but Sutra points to the map and explains that the Gonlerv people have a similar legend. He argues that the ruin entrance should be nearby and offers to search for it himself. He promises to take full responsibility if he fails and asks them to trust him this once. The gamble hangs in the air, then they decide to go all in. Felicia summons a phantom steed, a flying horse, and they mount up. As they take to the sky, Sutra feels a quiet satisfaction. He's steered them toward the anvil. Carrick grumbles, telling him to hold on or he'll fall off. Sutra replies that he's ridden beasts like this plenty of times as Sapphire, but he keeps a cautious hand on the reins. Watching the minimap, Sutra estimates they'll reach the suspected entrance in about an hour. He tells himself that finding the ruins won't be hard with the map. The real trick will be guiding the group there naturally so no one grows suspicious. He keeps thinking if he matches the surface terrain to the tunnel patterns he saw earlier when he opened the portal, he can narrow down the anvil's general location. He can't believe it and wonders if it actually worked. Carrick and Caitlin are watching, confused, and everyone asks what he means and what he's saying. Sutra laughs nervously and thinks to himself, damn, just let it slide when I bluff. Out loud, everyone tells him to lead the way. Even Felicia says she understood and asks him to go ahead. Sutra is surprised. He was making it up, but somehow it sounded plausible. He tells the group to follow him. Felicia is a little annoyed but keeps quiet. Carrick looks stunned and says they followed the prince all this way only to reach a dead end, asking if he's sure this is the right spot. It doesn't look like an entrance at all. Sutra just laughs. Carrick presses again, saying he still doesn't see anything that looks like an entrance. Sutra asks Caitlin if she can smash through this wall. Caitlin protests, surprised that he's asking her, but Sutra says he's counting on her for the heavy work. Caitlin agrees to give it a shot. Felicia balks and asks if he really means the anvil that gives birth to thunder is inside this cliff. Sutra says that according to his calculations, breaking through here would let them bypass the dungeon guardians. So if Caitlin smashes the wall they can get in. Felicia snaps that Caitlin can't possibly break a mountain with her fists. Does he think she's a siege engine? Sutra asks how else they would get in. Felicia sighs and then summons a swirling bit of magic, explaining that ruin explorers usually pick up minor demolition and explosive techniques. She hurls the spell at the cliff and the rock fractures with a thunderous crash. When the rubble falls away, a dome is revealed. Felicia exclaims in surprise that Sutra really found it. Sutra asks what the dome is, whether the thunder relic is inside. Felicia confirms that the dome looks like the final safeguard and that the anvil should be within. Carrick suggests they simply smash the dome, but Sutra says no, they can't risk damaging the anvil. There has to be a proper way to open it. As they look around, Sutra notices 9 statues. 3 are holding weapons, 6 are not. Caitlin asks if they need to give weapons to the unarmed statues. Felicia frowns and says she doubts it's that simple. Felicia points out that the weapons the statues are holding are clearly dwarven-made, suggesting they probably need to place dwarven weapons in the empty hands. Caitlin wonders where they're supposed to find 6 dwarven swords just like that. Sutra tells them he happens to have 6 of them, leaving everyone staring at him in disbelief. Even Felicia can't believe what she just heard and demands an explanation. In his mind, Sutra thinks that he can't believe saving those useless weapons he couldn't equip actually paid off. Pure luck. He explains that he picked up some spares while exploring the last tunnel, just in case. Carrick, looking suspicious, asks when he even managed that and how 6 swords could possibly fit in his small bag. Sutra thinks to himself that he doesn't like sharp-witted orcs like Carrick and casually tells him not to worry about it, saying the weapons are heavy anyway. Carrick groans and takes the swords from him, calling him weak as he does. Together, they begin placing the weapons into the empty hands of the statues. As soon as the last sword is set, the statues start to glow. A deep hum fills the air as light spreads across the dome, and slowly, it begins to open. Everyone watches anxiously as the dust clears, revealing the legendary anvil that births thunder. Felicia warns that, according to the records, there's still one last procedure required to activate the anvil. She tells Sutra and Carrick to stay where they are while instructing the others to take their positions at the 3, 6, and 9 o'clock points of the circular platform. Once everyone's ready, she explains that they'll begin infusing mana into the disc, starting from her and proceeding clockwise, with the mana flow gradually increasing each round. Everyone moves into place. Felicia begins channeling her magic first, urging the others to focus as she sets the rhythm. One by one, they start feeding their mana into the circle, and soon the entire area hums with energy as the glow intensifies around the anvil. She tells Sutra to push a bit harder, guiding him to maintain a steady balance without losing focus. Sutra strains to keep up, sweat forming on his brow as the energy pressure builds. The sheer force of the magic soon grows so immense that even outside the cliff, waves of energy ripple through the air, lighting up the surroundings. Then suddenly, Sutra feels his surroundings distort. The scene around him changes in an instant, and he finds himself standing among a group of dwarves, though he has no idea how or why he's there. Before he can process what's happening, a deep, commanding voice echoes around him, declaring, "My vessels, heed my words." Looking up, Sutra sees a towering figure, a dragon-like presence radiating immense power. The voice continues, commanding them to protect the sacred nest of the great Enkidu and to stand as the gatekeepers between the demon and human realms. Sutra stares in awe, realizing what he's seeing. In his mind, he recognizes the creature, a black dragon, and immediately connects it to the legend of the earth dragon Enkidu. Felicia's voice breaks his thoughts as she calls out, asking if he saw it too, the enormous black dragon with molten lava coursing through its body. Carrick confirms he witnessed the same vision, and Felicia remarks that it seems they all shared it. She admits she isn't sure what it means yet, but one thing is certain: the anvil holds the key to the truth. As she reaches out to touch the anvil, a sudden surge of overwhelming energy bursts forth. The power lashes out violently, and Felicia struggles to contain it, but it quickly overwhelms her. Sutra rushes forward, alarmed, while Caitlin and Carrick shout for her to stop. Before he can reach her, the power engulfs Felicia completely, and then it begins to spread, pulling Sutra into it as well. Amid the blinding light, he hears a voice echo in his mind. Conquer the earth dragon Enkidu's mana. His trial is cast upon those not granted permission. To conquer is to dominate. The raging energy finally begins to subside, and the light slowly fades. As the dust settles, Sutra comes into view, his body now slightly transformed, his aura heavier and sharper than before. In his hand, he grips a massive hammer radiating with faint traces of thunder. He looks down at it, breathing hard, still trying to comprehend what just happened. The others stare in shock, unable to tell whether he's the same person or something entirely new. Meanwhile, far from the cliff, high above a nearby ridge, a red-skinned figure watches the allied camp from a distance. He grins maliciously, his voice dripping with mockery as he thinks to himself that those fools really believed hiding in the mountains would keep them safe. Turning to the man beside him, he asks what they should do, whether they should launch an immediate strike. But the one standing at the center, the towering chieftain of the Scarlet Lightning tribe, Yakujin, remains still. His piercing eyes scan the valley below with calm calculation. When his impatient disciple urges him again to give the order, Yakujin finally speaks, his tone cold and certain. He tells them to prepare, because they're going to wipe out the stragglers. Behind him, the entire army begins to stir. The ground rumbles as massive war beasts, gigantic swamp mammoths armored for battle, stomp into formation. The air crackles with tension and killing intent. The Scarlet Lightning tribe is ready to march, and this time, they plan to leave nothing alive. The green forces finally spot the danger barreling toward them as massive explosions erupt overhead. The mammoths are firing again, and panic spreads through the ranks. Even Chris looks stunned and admits that without Caitlin and Felicia present they risk annihilation. From the enemy line, their leader laughs cruelly and orders his troops to finish them off. The enemy mages begin casting, but suddenly something strange happens. Bandal finds his hands won't move. The mammoths stop in place as an unseen force surrounds them. Confusion breaks out. Then the mammoths turn and start firing on the Scarlet Lightning tribe itself. The enemy leader shouts in disbelief and asks why their own beasts have turned on them. Chris, watching, pieces it together and realizes the anvil must have been found. He sees Sutra holding a massive hammer and can hardly believe it. A voice explains that the hammer is the Thunder Hammer, the counterpart to the anvil, and that Enkidu has chosen Sutra. Felicia urges him to use it, and Sutra, still stunned, tells himself he has to wield it. He feels Enkidu's mana guiding him, the command to conquer and subjugate, to dominate. Sutra uses the hammer to seize control of the swamp mammoths. The beasts, now compelled, turn on their former masters and sweep through the Scarlet Lightning ranks in confusion. Chaos erupts everywhere. Bendal seizes the moment and orders the counterattack, noting that since the mammoths are now fighting for them, the prince and princess must have pulled something off. He tells everyone to press the advantage and not to let a single enemy escape. As the green forces press forward, the enemy leader keeps shouting questions, baffled by why his mammoths are attacking their own side. His subordinate can only answer that he doesn't know. They all all wonder who could be controlling such overwhelming mana. For now, the consensus is to retreat and wait for another chance. Suddenly, an explosion erupts right behind the enemy leader. Chris has arrived to take them down. He threatens that if they surrender, their deaths won't be too painful. The enemy leader roars in anger and lunges at him, but Chris counters with the Beast God Fist art. His attack is devastating, and the chieftain is taken down in an instant. Seeing their leader fall, the remaining enemies panic and start fleeing. Chris watches them go, relieved, commenting that now it's just a matter of finishing off the stragglers and noting that without the help of Sutra and Felicia, they would have been in serious trouble. Meanwhile, Carrick and the others are monitoring everything on a screen. Carrick asks if the view is really what the swamp mammoths are seeing, and Felicia confirms that with the anvil, it's possible to control all the treasure guardians. She starts explaining the anvil's power over the Scarlet Lightning tribe, but suddenly collapses from exhaustion. Everyone panics a little, but she reassures them she just needs a short rest. They agree to let her rest, but then notice Sutra is nowhere in sight. Sutra let out a sigh of relief, finally able to take a breather. A notification popped up, showing that he had leveled up continuously. He glanced at his stats, noting how much his level had risen. He wondered if it was because he had controlled the relic of Enkidu. Another notification showed that his conquest skill had also increased. Sutra was a bit puzzled, but then noticed that even under the king's banner had leveled up. He realized that if his main skill grew stronger, it would benefit both him and the king's knights. Judging by the name, conquest seemed like a summoning type skill, though he didn't fully understand it yet. Suddenly, Caitlyn's voice called out, startling him. Sutra remembered that he had left without saying anything and quickly tried to apologize, but Caitlyn, clearly upset, pummeled him for disappearing so suddenly. Sutra apologized again, and Caitlyn finally relented, saying that as long as he was safe, that was what mattered. She insisted they hurry back, explaining that they would have to camp out for the night. Sutra had assumed they'd be heading straight back, but Caitlyn told him that Felicia had lost consciousness. They soon arrived to find Felicia being tended to by a few people trying to heal her. Caitlyn explained that Felicia had been released after being captured by the Scarlet Lightning tribe, but had pushed herself too hard. Before collapsing, she had insisted she'd be fine with just resting, but there was no telling when she would wake. Without her, they couldn't even summon the phantom steed, so they had to keep watch over her there. Sutra understood and nodded, though he worried quietly to himself, wondering if Felicia would be okay. As night fell in the mountain area, Sutra lay down alongside Carrick and the others, thinking. He wondered if his stamina had fully recovered just from leveling up because he didn't feel tired at all. Should he just wait until morning like this? Then a thought struck him. Since this was a ruin, there must be hidden weapons or treasures inside the dungeon. Of course, there would also be traps and guardians, but he reminded himself that he now possessed a powerful weapon, which gave him a sense of confidence. Sutra wondered aloud if he might actually be the ruler of this ruin. The power of the anvil only worked inside here, but within the ruin, it manifested as absolute power. In other words, he already had a free pass to the entire place. Carrick, still half asleep, was nudged awake by Sutra, who told him to come along. As they walked, Carrick asked nervously if it was really okay to just barge in like this and what would happen if something went wrong. Sutra reassured him that since he was the ruler of this place, there was nothing to worry about. He suggested they think carefully, noting that the ruin must hold some valuable weapons. Carrick agreed, and his eyes widened when he spotted something massive. He pointed and exclaimed that there was an enormous monster ahead. Sutra identified it as an argolem, a griffin-like creature extremely powerful. He noted that if they had wandered in blindly, they might have been killed instantly. Carrick groaned and urged they get out of there, calling the giant's presence terrifying. Sutra teased him for being cowardly, but Carrick insisted that caution wasn't cowardice. Eventually, they stumbled upon a room filled with treasure. Carrick's excitement was palpable as he pointed out an impressive piece of armor. Sutra agreed it looked valuable and, thinking to himself, recognized subtle mana within it. It was magical armor. He offered it to Carrick, who couldn't believe he could take it but gratefully accepted, thanking Sutra repeatedly. Sutra then noticed something else glowing brightly. Picking it up, he realized they were ancient gold coins, and decided to store all the useful items in his inventory first, telling Carrick to grab anything worthwhile. He spotted a chest and opened it, only to discover what seemed like a hidden space. His eyes lit up as he realized there was definitely something more inside. He moved through a narrow passage and arrived in a wide chamber. Suddenly, a voice said, "Yo!" Sutra looked closer and instantly recognized the mana, even though he had never seen it before. The name sprang to mind: Enkidu. The artifact was the Gauntlet of Enkidu, known as the Earthquaker. A voice called out, addressing him as the valiant knight of conquest. Sutra immediately recognized it, the voice of Enkidu's gauntlet Earthquaker. He stepped closer, feeling the gauntlet calling out to him. Suddenly, a notification appeared, warning that his level, mana, mental strength, and overall strength were insufficient. Sutra panicked slightly, wondering if he couldn't wield it yet. Then, without warning, the voice granted him permission. Another notification confirmed that Earthquaker had acknowledged him as its master. Sutra could now finally wear the gauntlet. His strength, mana, and endurance all increased by 10 points. He could hardly believe how much his stats had risen just by equipping it. Thinking ahead, he realized that once his level increased further, this weapon would be utterly formidable, far beyond what he had expected. Carrick, witnessing everything, asked what had just happened. Sutra turned, a little surprised, asking since when Carrick had been there. Carrick admitted he had seen it all, that Sutra had made a gauntlet appear seemingly out of nowhere. Sutra sighed inwardly, thinking how troublesome it would be if his inventory were exposed. He reassured Carrick that the secret would stay between them. Carrick, impressed, simply commented that the place gave him a bad feeling and suggested they head back. Sutra laughed and agreed, and they started making their way back through the corridor, glittering with treasure. Suddenly, Sutra stopped and called out to Carrick. Curious, Carrick asked what was wrong. Sutra pointed ahead, indicating that the exact item they needed was right there. Later, back with the group, Felicia was given a mana recovery potion. Light enveloped her immediately, and soon she awoke. Sutra expressed his relief at seeing her awake, while Caitlin shared her gratitude, explaining that Sutra had brought back the potion to help her recover. Felicia asked where the mana recovery potion had come from. Sutra reminded her not to forget where they were. Felicia's eyes widened as she remembered. They were in the ruins. Sutra explained that, as the ruler of these ruins, she didn't need to worry. She could just rest, and her mana would be fully restored. Felicia thanked him again, and Sutra, a little puzzled, asked what that was about. She clarified once more that she was expressing her gratitude. As the sun rose, Wendell announced their return, praising the success of the prince and princess and congratulating everyone enthusiastically. Another figure cleared his throat. It was Chris, commending Felicia for her impressive work. Felicia downplayed it, saying it wasn't a big deal. Sutra, meanwhile, felt genuinely heartwarming about the praise and the success of their mission. Chris told everyone to get some rest and assured them that the cleanup would be handled. Sutra, surprised, asked if it was really over, and Chris explained that while the remnants of the Scarlet Lightning tribe still remained, the operation would be fully wrapped up within half a month. Sutra's face lit up at the thought of a half-month vacation, but Caitlin scoffed, making it clear that for her, there would still be more work, something Sutra would have to deal with alongside her. Later, as the day wore on, Sutra took a particularly powerful hit. Caitlin urged him to pull himself together, warning that he'd only hurt himself if he didn't. Sutra muttered that he was prepared, but this beast fist art training was seriously brutal. Those first 5 days had felt like nothing but endless beatings. Only after a week did Caitlin's punches start to become visible to him. Now, on the 11th day of training, he was finally able to react, at least somewhat. Caitlin noted that he was starting to keep up well, and Sutra admitted it was about time, given how many beatings he had taken. Thanks to the daily special training, both his beast fist art and aura levels had reached 5. Caitlin said he was ready to begin learning the beast god fist art. Sutra could hardly believe it. He was finally about to master the secret technique of the lycanthropes. Caitlin instructed him to pay close attention and follow carefully as she taught him a new way to wield aura. They held hands, and suddenly a massive surge of energy awakened. Sutra could feel Caitlin's aura guiding him. It was similar to the beast fist art he already knew, yet fundamentally different. The depth of aura became clearer and clearer, the very force of life itself. When pushed to the extreme, it felt like the power of the soul, the power of conquest, the ability to dominate and enforce obedience. Sutra wondered if this was what true aura felt like. Energy engulfed him further, and notifications confirmed his progress. Beast fist art level had increased, aura level had increased. Caitlin praised him for mastering the first level of beast god fist art. Sutra could now clearly see and control the aura in his hands, comparing it to Earthquaker. Another notification appeared. His level had risen to 14. Sutra grinned to himself, knowing this was only the beginning. Wendell watched nearby, excitement and curiosity lighting up his face at the sight of Sutra's progress. The next morning, Sutra and Caitlin were having breakfast when Sutra brought up a question about Felicia. He wanted to know why things between her and Chris seemed the way they did. Caitlin was a bit surprised, but Sutra explained that since Felicia was a key ally he needed, just like Chris, he was concerned that any tension between them him could be a problem. Caitlin clarified that it wasn't that they were on bad terms, but there was some distance. Sutra pressed, wanting to understand why, and Caitlin hesitated before mentioning that it might have something to do with Chris and Sylvan. Sutra was taken aback. Felicia's twin brother, Sylvan Doomblade, had been a formidable opponent when he had played as Zephyr. He asked Caitlin if there was some unresolved problem between Chris and Sylvan, trying to piece things together. Before Caitlin could answer, Chris suddenly appeared in the tent, surprising both of them. He told them to pack up because the matter had wrapped up quicker than expected. They would be leaving that afternoon. Sutra asked where they were going, and Chris reminded him that they needed to report back, implying the obvious destination. Wendell praised everyone for their hard work during this time, expressing his hope to meet the 9th prince again. Sutra responded in kind, acknowledging Bendel. With that settled, Chris announced it was time to head out. Sutra agreed, and Chris confirmed they were going to the Demon King's castle. The scene shifted to a dark, red-tinged area where the castle loomed ominously. Inside, a powerful and terrifying figure could be seen, radiating immense strength. As they made their way, it was explained that the journey back to the Demon King's castle was fairly straightforward. First, they needed to reach a teleportation circle capable of long-distance spatial leaps, and from there, they could use transfer magic to return directly to the castle. The nearest circle was estimated to be 3 days away, and the trip wasn't planned to include stops at inns. Another night under the open sky was unavoidable. As they camped for the night, Sutra commented on the upcoming arrival. The thought of reaching the Demon King's castle tomorrow made him a little nervous. At present, the Demon King's castle was divided into 3 main factions: Jafire, Baikal, and Anastasia. Jafire Ragnarok, the second prince, was known as the Demon King's second son and his greatest rival. Then there was the first prince, Baikal Ragnarok, and the fourth princess, Anastasia Nectrian. In the struggle for the throne, birth order didn't matter. Those with the greater achievements and superior ability always rose to the top. Baikal and Jafire were full-blooded brothers with nearly equal abilities. They inherited the power of their mother's draconian clan, granting them immense strength. If one had to be chosen as heir, the more moderate Baikal would likely have been the safer choice, but such a distinction hardly mattered now. After the events to come, everything would change. Sutra knew he had to prepare for every possibility. First, he planned to raise his level until he could fully wield Earthquaker and maximize his newfound strength. Then, a skill activated unexpectedly. The Night Order had been created. Sutra blinked in surprise, thinking it was just another summoning type skill. The notification read, King's Knights Level 1. Knight Commander, current total members 0 out of 2. Knight Training, Night Order Skill Level 1. Knight's Blessing Level 1. Increases the HP of Special Skill Summon Level 1. Can summon the Knight Commander, limited to once every 3 days. Sutra muttered to himself that it seemed like a full-fledged guild system with buffs, night training, and even summoning. Level 1 already looked absurdly powerful. If it was this strong at the start, he could only imagine how devastating it would become later. Carrick arrived, frowning and clearly annoyed. He asked why Sutra was still awake instead of sleeping, reminding him that if they wanted to leave early in the morning, he needed rest. Sutra laughed and told Carrick he'd come at the perfect time, inviting him to try out an experiment. Carrick hesitated, nervous, asking what the experiment was. Sutra then held a sword over him, declaring him his Knight Commander. A bright light enveloped Carrick as the sword touched him. He commented on the strange feeling, noticing his loyalty toward Sutra had surged. A notification confirmed, Knight Commander Carrick, level 24, rank 1 soldier. Sutra grinned, approving the transformation, while Carrick admitted he felt powerful but also confused. Sutra teased him, asking if he wanted to become the strongest orc in the world and promised to raise him into the mightiest orc emperor of Night Saga, strong enough to even challenge the dragon race. Carrick, flustered, asked if Sutra was feeling unwell. The next day, they all reached the teleportation circle. Chris prompted them to get going, and Sutra agreed. They stepped onto the circle together, traveling at such speed that Sutra panicked and screamed. Soon, they arrived at a new location. Caitlin checked if Sutra was okay, and he confirmed he was fine. They were relieved to see Felicia, surrounding her with warmth and compliments. Sutra, impressed, thought it felt like an idol fan club, noting all her attendants and subordinates. Chris was also surrounded by others, who greeted him warmly, and Caitlin received similar attention. Sutra felt left out, noticing that no one fussed over him. Whispered remarks circulated around him, and he realized roughly where he stood within the hierarchy of the Demon King's castle. He shrugged it off, content with his place. He turned to Carrick, asking if he was ready. Sutra resolved to start changing things one step at a time. The Demon King's castle loomed before them, its interior bathed in a deep red, intimidating light. The atmosphere was tense and foreboding. Galaxy commented that they could finally unpack their things, and Sutra, relieved, noted at least there was a room for them. Galaxy mentioned that the official event schedule would begin tomorrow, but until then, they were free to spend their time as they wished. Sutra mused that free time didn't feel much different from being left to rot somewhere. Just then, a door opened and a woman stepped in, introducing herself politely as Flora, one of the 7 swords from the Demon King's Castle Real Estate Management Bureau. Sutra raised an eyebrow, questioning why someone from such a high office would be visiting a rundown place like theirs. Flora explained that his public merit level had increased, making him eligible to select a new residence. Sutra was slightly surprised by this news. Later, at the Office of Public Merits in Charge, Isabella greeted him, introducing herself as the representative from the office there to meet him. She confirmed that he could indeed receive a new residence and proceeded to show him the available options. Isabella explained that, thanks to Sutra's latest conquest, his public merit level had risen to level 5. His merit details were displayed, showing that he now had access to more facilities within the Demon King's castle, and his monthly stipend had jumped from 5 gold to 500 gold. Remarkably, he was the first prince to achieve so much on his very first mission. Sutra chuckled in disbelief and immediately requested to see the residences. Carrick, wide-eyed at what he was seeing, exclaimed that it was insane to think this could be Sutra's new residence. Then the assistant appeared, introducing herself as Flora 7 Sword, noting she could serve as both butler and head maid, and mentioning she was a follower of Camilla, goddess of dreams and shadows. Carrick, confused, whispered to Sutra, wondering why she had first been introduced as a real estate bureau official. Sutra explained that he had hired her using his merit points, a kind of currency earned through accumulated achievements. He added casually that the details weren't important, and Carrick muttered that Sutra had started talking nonsense lately. The next day, Sutra and Carrick were dressed in really nice clothes. Carrick nervously mentioned that he kept feeling like he needed to pee and wondered if it was just nerves. Sutra groaned, telling him to just go already because even talking about it was making him anxious. Then Felicia and Caitlin appeared, both looking impeccable. Felicia teased that she was the one who picked out their outfits, and Caitlin praised her effort. Felicia shrugged, satisfied, while Caitlin complimented Sutra, saying the clothes suited him perfectly. Sutra returned the compliment, telling them they looked amazing as well. Caitlin laughed, and Felicia nodded proudly. Chris appeared and reminded Sutra that this was his first audience ceremony. Sutra was startled to see him but nodded. Chris explained that today Sutra would be the star and would present himself to everyone in the Demon King's castle. As Sutra walked alongside the others, he felt a surge of confidence, thinking that everyone who had once dismissed him as a worthless prince would now have to look at him differently. Chris went first, formally announcing himself as the 7th Prince Chris Moonlight before Demon King Mitra. An assistant of the Demon King called for the reporting of the prince's and princess's achievements. Sutra was awed by Mitra's presence. The Demon King's immense aura pressed down on him, almost crushing him with its weight. He could hardly believe the sheer, overwhelming power radiating from the ruler. A voice echoed in his mind, urging him to conquer the suffocating pressure, to overcome it and bend it under his will. Slowly, light began emanating from Sutra, and he realized that this was the power of conquest flowing through him. With effort, he finally managed to withstand Mitra's oppressive presence. The Demon King smirked faintly and addressed Sutra by name, leaving Felicia, Chris, and Caitlin visibly surprised. Mitra then said he looked forward to seeing Sutra's future achievements.
Guys, that's the end of the video. If you liked this video, please leave a comment in the comment section. Also subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. Like the video and share it too. Thank you for watching and see you next time again.